Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. You have found our YouTube channel, and you have found episode number 717. I get to interview a really inspirational, really wise young man who's been involved in the FFA for several years and is on his way to being a farmer. Matter of fact, I shouldn't even say that. He already is a farmer. And there's a really interesting twist in this story today where this young man did not get started into crop farming because that's what his parents were doing. He chose it on his own and found a way to make it happen when he was 15 years old. Very, very interesting. We'll be speaking with John Loudenburg coming to us. Well, he's coming to us from Colorado Mountain College today, but he's actually from Salem, South Dakota, and he's going to be talking to us all about his farm back home, how it all got started, and where he is going in the future. We'll start that for you right now. Joining me today is John Loudenburg, and he is coming to us from Colorado Mountain College, where he's getting ready to finish up his associate's degree before transferring on and studying agricultural business. And he is just fresh off of the National Convention, where he was nominated for a National Proficiency Award in Grain Production Entrepreneurship. John, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, you bet. I am glad to finally get to speak with you and excited to hear about your journey. How was Indy?
Indy was really cool. Got to be on stage a couple of times. Got interviewed for my SAE proficiency and met some really cool people. Yeah, it was a blast.
Awesome. That is great. Had you gone to the National Convention before?
Yes, I had. I had one 2 times before. The one time I just visited when it was in Louisville, and then the second time I competed in nursery landscape CDE, which is a career development event, and competed in that with my chapter on the national level in 2016. So yeah, I had experience being at National Convention, but it was really cool being in a proficiency this time. I had never done that before.
You know, I don't know if it's, when you're going to go there and you're going to be up on stage for a proficiency award or for any other reason, I don't know if it's better or if it's worse if you've been there before. If you've been there before, then you know just how many people are going to be in that, in the Bankers Life Fieldhouse. They're going to be up there watching you and cheering for you, and it might make you more nervous knowing how many people are going to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, but honestly, there's so many people that go through that line, and it's incredible how many national finalist categories there are. That it's just such a broad spectrum, and unfortunately, it all kind of gets blended together because they just are constantly rushing through hundreds and hundreds of names.
Yeah,
and so that kind of relieves the pressure.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so now you're at Colorado Mountain College, but you are originally from South Dakota, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how did you wind up over in Colorado?
Well, I needed to get away from farming for a little bit. I was kind of questioning whether it was something I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And now that I'm out here, I've had some experience doing some other things, and it really is what I want to do. It's basically my roots, and I've always known agriculture my whole life, and so to me now it's just making sense that I want to go back into agriculture and really pursue it with my future.
Okay. So when you're not at school, when you are back at home in South Dakota, you're on a farm then?
Yeah, I'm back on the farm, working cattle for my dad or getting stuff ready for planting or harvest season.
Okay. So your farm there in South Dakota, it's row crops as well as livestock then?
Well, the stuff that I do personally is crops and crop production, but we just have a very small self-sustainable cattle operation with only a few cows, but with all the flooding and stuff, there's been a lot of fencing that's needed to be redone. So it's kept me busy.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I bet you have been busy. Yeah, how are people recovering? I mean, it was last spring we had all that flooding in your region, but it almost seems like a lifetime ago now unless you're actually there and still dealing with it. How are people recovering from that?
Well, from what I know, people are doing pretty well as of right now. I've talked to my agronomist not too long ago and said people are in the fields harvesting, so that's a great sign. But it's still very wet. Both my fields are still quite wet, and too wet to harvest at the moment. But I feel like in the next few weeks, I'll be headed back to harvest.
Yeah,
it'll be ready by then.
Okay. So. Well, good for you, because I know it. It started this spring and it's kind of never let up all year. It seems like up in that region. So
it really hasn't.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of pictures coming out of North Dakota of people trying to dig sugar beets and things like that, just getting buried. And it's a rough year. So I'm glad you're going to be able to get your stuff out of the field, John. Now let's talk about FFA for a second. How long have you been involved in the FFA?
Well, I think I've been involved in the FFA since 2013, I think, so a long time. In my school, we started FFA classes when we were in 7th grade, and I don't remember what year it was when I was in 7th grade. And so that's when I started FFA, and really I loved it and kept on being active in FFA with CDEs and my SAEs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you kept going, and what brought you into the organization? Why did you join in the first place?
Well, in my school, it's kind of a required class in 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
For middle school, and I just really enjoyed it. And also, I grew up on a farm, so I had agriculture in my background, and all my friends were big farmers that have large operations, and it was like, I kind of want to do that. And so that got me started in FFA, and with me being in FFA, my advisor and all the other FFA members kept on giving me advice on what to do, starting to grow crop production, because I didn't start out. I started from scratch with my proficiency with crop production. We had never done any crop production before. The only thing we did was hay for our cattle.
Okay. So you actually started that up, and that's something that you took on your own.
Yes, sir.
Very interesting. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. That's very interesting. Now, you are currently you're away at school. You're gonna transfer, and you're gonna study ag business. So you talked about kind of needing a break away from farming just to try other things and make sure this was what you really wanted to do. When you left high school and you went off to college in Colorado, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, I do want to farm, but I want to make sure that's what I really want to do? Or were you thinking, I'm not sure I want to farm and I want to explore other areas?
Well, I was thinking I didn't want to farm and I wanted to explore other areas, but when I look back at it, farming is it's always what I've really wanted to do, apparently. I didn't think about that. That didn't really come to me till this year.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it took a whole year and a half to figure that out.
And what kind of brought it around for you? Is there any one event or anything you can point to where you went, okay, I finally got it figured out?
Well, probably when I found out I was nominated for a National Proficiency Award. It was like, you know what? According to this, I'm doing something right farming. Maybe I should just stick to that because I really enjoy it, and also it's I'm becoming successful at it.
Yeah, very good. Well, good for you. I'm glad that you had that moment. You know, not everybody can point to something like that. I'm glad you have something like that you can point to and go, this was kind of a watershed moment for me in the development of myself and my career and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this, John, really quick. I'd love to identify who your FFA advisors are who've helped you along the way, and then we'll move on to talking about your SAE after that. Who are those folks for you?
All right, my FFA advisors are Mr. Terry Riekman and Mrs. Tracy Chase. They advised me throughout middle and high school and gave me a large amount of advice as long as just someone to come in and talk to when I got bored of doing other stuff in school. And, they were probably the most influential people in my high school.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for acknowledging both those great folks. I've worked with Mr. Reichman quite a bit on setting up interviews. I had the pleasure of meeting Mrs. Chase at the National Convention last year, and both great folks, so I really appreciate you doing that. And, John, really quick, I'm going to take a moment just to acknowledge one of our sponsors and everybody. That is Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment. And if you're like John and you're working cattle, then you're going to need to have the right equipment: panels, squeeze chutes, runways, sweep tubs, everything you need. And Powder River developed theirs out here in the West with cattle that only saw humans maybe every once or twice a year, and they were very, very difficult to handle, and they made equipment that could stand up to these large livestock, keep them in minimization of stress on them, and as safe as possible working with these animals for both the animal and the handler. We sincerely hope you'll check them out over at powderriver.com and thank them for being a sponsor of this show. They've been a big supporter of this show. And hey, let your local farm and ranch retailer know that you'd like to have Powder River in their yard, so you've got the option of buying their equipment as well. All right, John, thanks for letting me get away with that really quick.
No problem.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. I want to know more about it, so tell us what it was.
Well, my SAE consisted of 172 acres of crop ground. I had a field of this year it was supposed to be 103 acres of corn and 69 acres of soybeans, but it really got knocked down to only 70 acres of corn with all the flooding. So, but normally it's those two fields on crop rotation. Okay. And then I started that when I was, I think, in the year of 2015. I can't remember. I think it's my fourth or fifth year working on this project. And, the land I rented from my grandfather, I gained an opportunity where the past renter's contract was up, and he needed a renter. And so I took it because I had always wanted to do this. Always wanted to farm ever since I was younger. Mm-hmm. But as I said earlier, it kind of, farming can cause stress and stuff. And yeah,
it certainly can. Well, I want to ask you more about how this came about. So the type of farming that you were doing at home was you were growing hay and raising livestock. Mm-hmm. And so
yes, sir.
This type of crop production, this was something that you decided to go into on your own. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir. The reason I wanted to do that is my dad's dad, he died before I was born, mm-hmm. and he was a farmer over in Mitchell, South Dakota.
Okay.
And my dad had grown up farming and growing corn and crops and working cattle mm-hmm. back in from the 70s and 80s, and so he knew everything that was important about farming. He knew all the basics and how to do everything, and so with his help, he helped start me up on my SAE after I was able to rent that ground.
Okay.
And from then on, it kind of took off. Had to buy a fair amount of equipment, and now I'm at where I am now.
Wow, that's great. So was there a bit of a family legacy kind of built into this for you, John? So your grandfather's property, who you never had the opportunity to meet, it came mm-hmm. up for rent, and in my mind, I'm sitting here hearing the story, and I'm going, well, it came up for rent, and you kind of had a chance to carry on a legacy that had been started by your grandfather, or maybe even earlier generations. Does that factor into this at all?
Well, it's kind of different. Actually, this is a little confusing.
Okay.
So the land I'm renting is my mother's dad.
Okay,
and,
other grandpa.
Yeah, it's both it's kind of related to both grandpas, but
okay.
Unfortunately, my dad's dad is no longer with us, and he was the farmer.
Right.
So none of my uncles or my dad. My dad was the only one that actually took farming up after my grandfather died.
Okay.
He's a businessman in Salem, but he doesn't do it on a production level. He just kept the cattle because it's really nice having your own beef.
Yeah.
And also he also really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But pretty much any production stuff had stopped after my grandfather passed.
Okay.
Way back when, and so I was the only one that really wanted to continue that, and so basically, after many years, I was the only one that picked it up out of all of my relatives mm-hmm. Becoming a farmer.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I wasn't able to use my the Grandpa Loudenburg's farm, but it's all worked out so far.
Gotcha. And the people that were leasing the farm that you're now leasing or renting prior to you, did they have it in the same type of production rotation that you've got it in now?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, I almost had to do that because with standard crop rotation, it's pretty basic. You had to switch soybeans to corn and all that stuff.
Okay. So, what equipment did you have when you first decided to do this?
The only thing I had was access to a 4440 John Deere tractor, a 6430 tractor, and a John Deere 7000 planter. That was it. So I had to go out. I bought first thing I bought was a disc. It was just an old disc from probably the early 70s. It was an old I forget what it was, but it was an old John Deere disc in pretty good shape, but didn't work the best. And then I had to buy stuff for harvest. I had to buy myself a combine. I bought a John Deere 9500 combine with that came with a bean flex head, and then I had to buy a 6-row corn head, as well as I had to buy a grain truck and multiple grain gravity boxes to haul grain to the elevator.
Wow. Okay. How do you do this in high school? How is this even possible?
Well, when I was younger, my dad and my mom put some college investments in, and when I was entering high school, I decided to take some of those investments and put it towards buying equipment. And so what I was able to do is I was able to take a loan out against myself, and so that way I'm constantly paying myself back, and yeah, I was able to buy equipment and allow my money to be invested in assets rather than just renting equipment. And so that way those assets keep on making me money as I pay for them.
Yeah. Well, that is pretty amazing decision making. And honestly, I think a lot of parents would say, oh, no, we're not touching that college fund. But your parents saw something in you and were willing to allow you to take that risk.
Yeah. And so far it's paying off.
Well, good for you. I'm glad to hear that it is. And I'm glad to hear that it's lit such of a fire in you. So, it's interesting when we first started the interview and you said you needed a break from farming to find out if that's what you really want to do. Normally when I hear a statement like that from a young person, I'm thinking they're kind of pushing back a little bit. Maybe they've been farming their whole life with their parents because that's what their parents do, and now they're going, wait a second, I'm not sure that this is the life that I want. But in your case, you're the one who started you off farming, and you did it for 4 years of high school, or since 2015. So for the last 4 years, and you're the one going, I think this is what I want to do, but I want to see a different, different way of living before I really make this decision. So this was really all you.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I was somehow I can't remember what happened, but I got really nervous about farming and feeling like it wasn't going to work out. And so that's why I wanted to get out of South Dakota. I wanted to live a little bit. And so, and I really enjoyed the mountains, and that's why I chose Steamboat. Because when I looked at college prices, it was about the same amount of money for me to come out here than to go to a school in state.
Okay.
So it made sense. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask you, so what's going on with your farm while you're away?
So right now, my dad has decided to look over things while I'm away, but I'm there for planting and I'm there for harvest, and so I'm there for the most important things. He has helped get stuff ready and put stuff away, and over the summer I make sure everything's just about ready for harvest before I leave for college, and so that way when I come back for harvest, it's get on your horse and go.
Okay, very cool. Well, that is excellent, and it sounds like you did quite a bit of research, and I'm sorry I kind of cut you off there, but quite a bit of research finding a place you could go and experience something different that wasn't going to be an astronomical expense to you in going to Colorado Mountain College.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. So
yes, sir.
While you've had this time in Colorado, what have you done that you wouldn't normally do if you were home farming in South Dakota? Like, are you a mountain climber now or something like that? What have you done?
Well, I'm really into skiing, and that's also why I chose Steamboat, is because there is a ski resort that's here, and so I go out and do that every winter, and it's a great experience to do that for a while. And plus, during winter, there's not a whole lot you can do on the farm,
Yeah.
or in crop production.
Mm-hmm.
There's always stuff you can do, but
right.
for my area, it's quite limited.
Right.
And so I have hobbies that work pretty well with my farming schedule, because when those lower activity winter months, I can look forward to do something that I enjoy that isn't just farming.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, very good. Well, okay, so here you are. You're going to wrap up your associate's degree there at Colorado Mountain College, and then what's next for you after that?
So right now I'm looking into going to agribusiness in either the University of Wyoming or South Dakota State University.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I don't know. Right now, that's my goal, is to going into agribusiness.
And then
agribusiness or agriculture.
And then possibly back to the farm that you've started.
Oh, I'm definitely going back to the farm that I've started.
Okay.
I'm still going to be farming on the side. No matter what I do, I'm going to be trying to farm on the side.
Okay.
For as long as I can.
Gotcha.
Wow. If it's not just farming completely.
Well, that is great. Well, John, I want to ask your advice for other students out there, other FFA students, or really just for anybody. And that is, what would you say to a student who's kind of started down a path like you started, and there's a lot of momentum building, you're having success, you're investing money, there's a lot of forward planning that goes on to it when you're farming. If they're having feelings like, hey, wait a second, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to commit the rest of my life to this one thing, what advice do you have for them to figure that out?
Ooh, that's a tough question, because it took me about 1.5 years to figure that out. But honestly, I would say that keep working on your farming, but time will tell, because time will tell. I mean, you'll figure out if farming is working for you or not, and if not, you shouldn't be too far down the rabbit hole to get out of it if you really want to. But honestly, if you're going into farming, it is a little bit of a long-term investment.
Yeah. Very good. Well, John, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Congratulations on your nomination this year and everything you've been able to do. It's quite a story, and really appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us.
Yes, sir. It was an honor being on here.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us, and as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.